Welcome to Rock Solid, the Round Rock Business Leaders Podcast. Join your host, Bryan Eisenberg, as he explores the journeys of entrepreneurs and companies across Round Rock, Texas. From startups and nonprofits to large organizations, each guest shares their passion for doing business in this thriving community. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody. It's Bryan Eisenberg, and welcome to Rock Solid. I'm joined today by Trina Martin from Parents for Arts Education. But I want to start in a whole different place because you are the first guest that we've had on since we learned Kay was going to do TEDx Round Rock Women. And I really want to explore what that experience was like. Because I've spoken on stages all across the globe, but doing a TEDx is a very different experience. And so I'm really curious your take on that.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It was an amazing experience. It was absolutely life-changing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it had to do with the prep and how Kay designed it, which was great. She brought all of us speakers together way early. So we kind of had this little community that could all build this together. And because there's definitely very strict parameters with TED. Mm-hmm. And so making sure that you're saying everything the correct way so that it will get published. And then also one of the jokes that I've laughed about is that my children used to tease me saying that I couldn't even introduce myself in 10 minutes. So I don't know how I was going to get everything that I talk about all the time into 10 minutes. But being able to do that really helped me hone in on the message that I've been talking about for 5 years. So being able to do that, and then the actual experience itself, the shocking part was that I wasn't as nervous as I thought I was going to be.
Interesting.
And I think that had to do with kind of we were all in this together, and we were all like downstairs in the speaker room, and I was part of the third group. So everybody had kind of gone all morning. And another thing that I kind of laughed about was they had the very zen speaker room. It was beautiful music and sage and everything. And I know myself, so I put my earbuds in, walked in the other room and air drummed rock music because I knew I kind of had to get into my body
zone. Yeah.
and my zone. And I literally had my AirPods in and I took them out and walked on the stage. So
now, I mean, you're no stranger to performing, so I'm not surprised that you crushed it. But the bigger thing I have, and I'm curious about from your perspective, is what do you think the impact is of having that here in our community?
First of all, I think it's huge.
Okay.
What I'm really discovering after is, first of all, the effect of the TEDx brand.
Yeah.
That it automatically lends credibility. It's given us all an opportunity to get kind of out of our bubbles of our platforms, which has been fabulous. But just so many people that I've talked to, because I just got back from the Texas Music Educators Convention. Mm-hmm. So that's talking to people from all over the state. And I'm like, guess what Round Rock did? Yeah. And they're all like, wait, Round Rock? And I'm like, yeah, Round Rock, And that's one of the things that I just love about this community and have always loved about this community is that we aren't afraid to kind of go out there and try things and see what happens.
And it doesn't surprise you, I think, in many ways, because your background is in marketing and your music sales for a while. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned you were working for a company from Dallas, and you got the opportunity to open up a store in Central Texas. And where did you find out it was the best spot?
So I was.
And how many years ago?
Exactly. So this was actually 30 years ago. I know it's shocking because I don't look like it could possibly have
Absolutely.
been. But
you were just a very, very, very young. Yeah.
It was amazing they let me do this at age 6.
Yeah.
But but I actually was only 26, which is kind of shocking they let me do that anyway. But I came down from Dallas, and it was the first time that one of the biggest retailers in the nation was going to open up in Central Texas. And so we thought it was going to be a 4-year process. It was a 9-month process.
Wow.
And we researched all the area. It was the exact time that like the Lakeline Mall was starting to open and all of this. And we both sat there and said, no, Round Rock is where it's going to be. And so we opened our store in Round Rock because we could just tell that the way that the city was looking at designing it, the way that things were starting to build right around that. It was before 45 was in, but we knew that was going to grow. And it ended up literally within the first 2 years, it was the top producing store in the entire chain.
So something special about Round Rock.
Very much.
Now let's go back a little bit into your story because, again, you started in music sales and in marketing for many, many years. What was that pivot point that you decided, well, no, I don't want to work in what I've done my whole career. Yeah. I'm going to go on a crusade.
Yeah. Well, I will say that the crusade has kind of been the through line when we opened that store. And I was so excited to manage this store. And in about 6 months, I realized I'm not a store manager because I'm just way too much of an entrepreneurial kind of brain. And so luckily, the owner of the company was pretty forward thinking. And we were like, you know what? Cause marketing is actually a thing.
Yes.
And back in 96, it was way early. And he said, let's see what we can do with how we're already supporting music education. Let's see if we can put it on steroids. And so we created the Brooke Mays Foundation for Music Education. It was the good old days when you could go on the morning shows for free.
Yeah.
And so I did all the morning shows, and we got Willie Nelson to do a PSA for us, and Sean Colvin.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
We got the Fulmore Middle School band played on the road again. I mean, it was awesome. And that really hooked me into the cause of music education. And I started really paying attention to the research, paying attention to everything. And so even though that wasn't able to sustain once 9/11 hit, then I went to be a full-time stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
And even though I could get any instrument basically for free, I had access to all the best teachers. Both of my children are dancers because that's how you rebel against your mother.
Yep.
So I was
still the arts.
I know it's still the arts, but studio dance is a little more expensive than
Yeah.
But
well, so I'm going to stop you there. What your mother was also involved
Yes.
in the arts. So, and you rebelled, it sounds like
Exactly.
a little bit. So
No,
yeah.
so
let's explore that a little bit.
Exactly. So I laugh about how I broke my mom's heart by not being a visual artist. My children just paid me back by becoming dancers. It's all full circle. But my mom was actually one of the founding board members, along with Lisa Roebuck, who used to be the fine arts director in Round Rock, because, she was always so committed. But growing up, I was an Air Force brat.
Okay.
And my dad actually made colonel when I was in 7th grade. So that means that he started getting commands all around the country, and we moved just about every year.
Okay.
And so I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different states. But the through line and what kept me sane was I was in band. So every place I went to, I was able to plug in before school ever started. And that was something that was important to my mom because she knew how important the arts were. And so that was something that has always been in me, and I've always wanted to fight for. And then after being a stay-at-home mom, being a dance mom, seeing how much we're kind of missing, there's missing links in education advocacy, and especially fine arts advocacy, that I felt like I could help. Then it was literally in 2021, Lisa calls me and says, hey, you know that thing you've been talking about? How fast can you put it in name? Because I need you to go testify at the Capitol tomorrow. And I was like, I think I can register this name right now, And that kind of started it. I thought it was going to be me advising the other nonprofits because the last thing we need is another nonprofit in the arts world.
Yep.
And then 2 years later, I'm in a legislative office with a major fine arts director with a big district and had a great conversation going. She had to leave, and he turned to me and said, oh, good, the teacher's gone. I want to talk to you, the parent. And at that moment, I went, uh-oh, this is actually going to have to be way bigger than I thought. We're going to have to make this a totally separate organization because that voice has actually never been organized.
Okay.
And especially across all of the different arts disciplines to bring everybody together. And I was like, I think I'm going to have to do this. So.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? The perspective of a teacher versus a parent is very unique in the education system. But of course, you also have the administrators and the politicians there. And when I look at this, and my kids are my last one's almost out of high school. They've all participated in all kinds of different arts through the years. I did my music education and arts education in college and in high school and all that. But for me, when I look at this, and I'm curious from your perspective, math, science, all of those classes, they're great. They build knowledge.
Yeah.
But the arts, they bring joy.
Yes.
And I heard that from you when you talked about that through line of being able to join the band.
Yeah.
Why is it that administrators and politicians feel that we should strip joy from those kids?
Yeah. So that is the $1,000,000 question. And that's what all of us sit around and look at each other and say, none of this makes sense. However, what I do believe, and this is kind of how this has all evolved, and I'm really glad that I did take those 5 years to really do a lot of research. I did the whole Round Rock ISD leadership. So I got a chance to see behind the scenes all the different departments, everything they're dealing with. I totally understand it. The issue, I think, has to do more with we haven't aligned the arts with workforce readiness.
Fair.
And so when everybody views the arts, and I mean, well-meaning people view it as a nice-to-have luxury, then it's always going to be the first thing on the chopping block. Because you view it as, oh, it's joy. Well, kids can get joy in a lot of other ways, but we got to make sure that they learn. And the reality is these are some of the last courses that actually are TEKS-based that are teaching the human skills a computer can't replace.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, if this generation doesn't have the human skills, then they're not going to be able to get the job and keep the job. And that's where I think we need to really reframe it and really start talking about that side of it. Well-meaning arts advocates for years have wanted to focus on arts for art's sake. And they've wanted to focus on the joy of it. And I get that. But at the same time, then you're going to lose the war. It's marketing and it's messaging.
It always comes down to communication, right?
Yeah.
They say every war is just a miscommunication, like a battle between terms and stuff like that. So this is not just theory and feelings and stuff like that. There's actually some data, because when you strip these classes out of a classroom, I think in California, there's some research about that. Can you share what the impact is going forward from that?
So what is really fascinating is California, they just passed in 2022 Proposition 28.
Okay.
And that is where a percentage of taxes actually goes specifically for fine arts education, because they realized that how much that was hurting their population and hurting students and all that stuff. But because they had let it get so bad that when they turned around and said, all right, we have all this money, they found out only 11% of the schools in California were offering any kind of fine arts education.
Wow, okay.
And so they are now having to create huge organizations to rebuild grassroots efforts to convince the school districts to take the money and rebuild the program.
And to find all of those teachers that probably moved here
to
Texas.
Moved here. Exactly. So along those lines, I've had a lot of advocates that have asked me why I'm starting this in Texas.
Yeah.
Because Texas has some of the best programs. The reality is Round Rock has some of the best programs in the state, which has some of the best programs in the nation. But I tell everyone it's because we still have a structure and we still have the ability to change the message and get it out before it gets cut. And the reality is our legislature right now and TEA and a lot of the policies that are getting put in place are all about career building, asking sixth graders to start picking their careers, and everything is career and technology education. It's career and military readiness, and that's even going to start getting worse.
Yep.
And the reality is that this generation is skill building. They're not career building, because you can't predict what the careers are going to be probably 2 years from now.
Yeah, kind of scary.
It is very scary. And the hardest part, and what I'm kind of discovering, is that in some ways I tend to be the bearer of bad news. And so, I just got finished doing a teacher conference, and one of them was like, now you got me all depressed. I'm like, no, I don't mean to get anybody depressed, because I'm trying to tell you these are the tools we can use to fight this. But the reality is this is coming whether we like it or not,
What's the biggest blind spot that these administrators and politicians just can't get their heads around?
I personally think that, just talking with Dr. AZ, with Round Rock ISD, he has told me, he loves Round Rock. He loves fine arts. He's just saying, give me the money. I need the fine arts allotment. Yeah. Because right now, our legislature is only funding as an extra fund career and technology education.
Okay.
And so that is incentivizing all of the schools to make more of those classes. And the reality is we already have existing classes that are going to teach the skills, and we just need to fund them. And so I think a lot of it is that what the last legislative session really taught me is we had the fine arts allotment in the bill all the way until the absolute 11th and a half hour. And none of us even knew behind the scenes they pulled it. And one of the senators came on during the only hearing they had on it and said, look, fine arts people, we love fine arts. My son-in-law is a band director. We just don't have enough money. And that showed me that until we change the narrative, that it is not a nice to have luxury, that it is crucial for career, college, military readiness. It's crucial for everything that they are all about. And they just don't see that yet. But I think that if we as a community start speaking up, and we can't leave it to just the teachers to say it, it's got to be all of us that are doing other things, that we aren't in the arts world. We're not professional artists and musicians. We're not teachers. But we are saying, it gave me the skill set to be able to sit here and talk with you. It gave me the skill set to be able to think that I could start a nonprofit when I know nothing about starting a nonprofit, and without a fear of failure, because I've done plenty of that over my years as being a musician.
I can imagine there's a skeptical parent or skeptical politician out there who's listening to this and says, trying to sounds great. I can sort of believe you, but where's the evidence? Where's the evidence that these classes actually have an impact on their skills going forward? Because AI's coming, all this. AI can do the music. AI can.
Yeah.
Where's the evidence?
Well, what I will say is go to a performance.
Okay.
And you will visually see it. If you just watch a marching band, number one, none of them are on their phones, and there are no bench warmers. They're all in it, and they are all having to learn so much variety of stuff. So and there's a ton of research on movement and the brain, on rhythm and the brain, on music and learning
on
music.
Brain development,
all of that stuff. We've already had a ton of research on increased test scores and a ton of research on increased health. But for some reason, none of that stuff has really landed, because I'll run into people all the time and I'll say, I'm an arts education advocate. And they go, oh yeah, I know that music is math and it makes you smarter. And I'm like, okay, then why are we cutting it? And I think it's because we haven't put the whole thing together as to how all of those little pieces and the additional component of performing, which means that being able to get on a stage and deliver in one shot is the skill that a computer cannot do.
That's for
and
sure.
is the skill that every single one of us at some point has to do it. We have an interview. You have to be able to deliver in one shot.
We have podcasts.
Yeah. We have everything. And I think that a regular classroom can try and do that with hey, you have to get up and present your paper that you wrote, but that's a one-shot deal. And it's not reinforcing that skill
Doesn't
year
build
after
that muscle.
year.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a muscle that has to be built, because if you go to theater performances and you see the freshman, and then you see that same freshman as a senior, they're a totally different person. And I think that's what we have to start celebrating, start encouraging business communities to go to these performances, support. The musicals are an easy thing to go see.
Yeah.
Because the musicals in Round Rock ISD,
I
swear in many cases are better than what I've seen at the Bass Concert Hall. Especially better venues,
Yeah.
So it's just the more that we can get people who maybe haven't participated in this, so they don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. And you just say, hey, come see what's happening. I think that's going to prove it. There's plenty of data and research. And I'm not sitting here saying that I am a researcher.
Yeah.
I'm saying I just know how to look things up. But I definitely encourage everybody to go look at that research. But then it really is seeing it. and really putting it together.
I mean, they can go to ChatGPT and ask it too.
Exactly.
I'm just really curious, how would you have been different if you didn't have that marching band experience that you had in your whole life? Like, how did that help develop the Trina that we see today?
Well, I can absolutely tell you that as somebody who I literally went to my freshman years in Illinois, my sophomore and junior year were in Virginia, and my senior year I moved to California. So it's about as diverse as you can get.
Yep.
And if I didn't have something to plug into in the summer, then I would have been that kid on the first day of school trying to figure out this totally different community than what I came from, because it's Midwest, East Coast, and West Coast, And I think that I would probably be considerably shyer, even though my natural personality isn't.
Yeah.
But I think that would have forced me to kind of be quieter, forced me into kind of insecurity. And I think the ability to just kind of plug right in and have something where I could work hard at something and get better and get attention and get accolades and get, is huge.
If parents have listened to our conversation today and they're moved by you and they want to do something, what are you asking them to do?
So there's multiple things. First of all, if you are somebody that doesn't have arts experience, I just want you to really consider it for your children. I want you to start looking at it as something that is going to be essential for 7 years, that it's not a one and done thing to get the requirement out of the way. And if your child is even saying, I don't like this, guess what? I hated Spanish and they still made me take it. And so it's about flexing that muscle, because especially in the beginning, because it's hard, because it's delayed gratification, a lot of students will be like, oh, I don't like this. And if parents think of it as something that is only for the naturally talented, then they're going to be like, oh, my kid doesn't have talent, and pull them. And the reality is, I just heard this from somebody that was talking at TMEA, that there really is no such thing as talent, that it's skills. And stop calling these kids so talented. No, they have built amazing skills.
Fair, yeah.
And so that, I think, if we can just get that message in front of the younger parents, get it in front of the parents that are currently in it, because if their kid is on an asphalt in 100-degree heat for marching band and they come home saying they want to quit, you tell them, yeah, no. Because
little diversity is good for you.
And that's going to be the muscle that you're building. And then I would also say for adults and for businesses, I have been talking to a few businesses about how can you foster this skill set in your current employees? Because yes, we have to work on it for the students coming up, but we also have to work on it for all of us. And so look for opportunities. First of all, support those kids that come in and say, will you do an ad in our program? Yes. So do that. But then also look for opportunities for your own employees to maybe go to a show. Let's say this is the outing we're going to do. We're all going to go watch Cedar Ridge's musical. And then also, if you're doing wellness programs with your company and you're paying for gym memberships, go look at the studies on dance and on being in a community choir. Like, there was a study that just came out that was about how being in a choir actually lowered blood pressure better than statins. And so fund that. Say, hey, we will pay for your gym membership, but we'll also pay if you want to go do Latin dance classes, so that you're seeing, because they're proving that the Latin dance classes are actually better than going and running on a treadmill.
I think Bill's headed there next.
Exactly. And I want to see it. I want to go to your performance.
We definitely need video, absolutely.
Exactly, yeah.
If people want to join you on your crusade, what's the best way to get in touch with you to find out more?
Yeah, so actually next Thursday at the Round Rock Library, we're having kind of a meet and greet, learn more about this. And that is from 5 to 7 at the library.
And you'll be doing those on a kind of like a regular basis?
Yeah, and so this is kind of the first one. We're kind of testing the waters. So
they should look at the event calendar. See.
Exactly. So definitely come to that. And then we're also going to be doing the Amplify on Main, which is all part of Amplify Wilco, the kickoff. And that is going to be on March 4th. And we're going to have students that are going to come and bucket drum
Okay.
and encourage like young kids and everybody to just come drum and just experience what it's like to, get in connection with everybody around you and get on the same beat.
Okay, so we're going to close it out a little differently. If you had to do a marching band song to close out this episode, what are you playing?
Oh my goodness, a marching band song. Oh man, that is on the spot. Honestly, I'm just a sucker for like "We Will Rock You" and all the classic ones.
I'm good with that.
Exactly. Anybody that could just start going boom, boom, and get everybody going, get the whole crowd going. That's what I'm into.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.